Two readies from the players. Second round, one match of the evening. Rahmations versus NGC Man in 3, 2, 1. Texas. Speaking of Texas, Lone Star Qualifier. That's a thing. Hosted by CTM Bandy. CTM Bandy. Wow. RSPC everything. Thank you so much for the subscription. Pumpy and Bandy, they'll be running it. They're gonna host a real life tournament. Try their hand at that, and I'm sure it's gonna be excellent. Happening July 23rd to 24th, I think. Sometime in July. See, CTM Man Van Pumpy, says Kingsman. Imagine if someone has way too much free time but wants to do me a great favor. If you just want to like Photoshop like Pumpy's hair onto Vandy's bald head, I would absolutely love that. I think it's essential that that is made. But speaking of the game, 99,000 for NGC, 136 for Rahmations. You know, what can I say? Very solid starts here from both players. 215 for NGC, 232 for Rahmations. Rahmations left side though is gonna need some work. But yeah, Rahmations board looking solid once again. So is NGC. Just a very strong 18 game here for both players. At least in the opening phase. Rahmations now was hoping for a square piece, but gonna take a myriad of singles in Tetris, obviously, to clean his board at 264 for Rahmations, 307 for NGC. NGC gonna be able to fill in that J dependency. $361 for NGC Man, $357 for Rahmations. Rahmations definitely former semifinalist of the Challenger circuit, also a Masters player. Left side now for Rahmations looking quite rough. Is gonna have to sacrifice building quite a few holes, but is gonna get the right side reopened. Is gonna get the Lombard over for a Tetris. 410 for Rahmations, gets a triple into the row 2 Tetris. 438 for Rahmations, 434 for NGC. So very neck-and-neck game, but NGC playing right down at the bottom while Rahmations messing about with this row 2 setup. NGC with a spin, keep a clean board. 479 for NGC Man. 440 for Rahmations. Nice play there from NGC. Rahmations still messing about with this row 2, is delivering some Tetrises though. 494 for Rahmations after 123 lines. NGC Man looking to get his final Tetris of his level 18 campaign, but it's not going to come. At least looking very unlikely, as he's probably just going to try and transition safely. He's going to do exactly that. That's a Lombard, now a J dependency, now an L dependency, but the L dependency will be filled. 562 for NGC here at the beginning of level 19. Rahmations with a couple of Tetrises, 573 into level 20 for Rahmations. Both players with clean boards. Rahmations still messing about with this row 2, but finally is going to uncover the hole, takes a single, and now back down to the bottom. And looking to continue business as usual. But needs to get as well reopened. Is going to do exactly that. Tetris for Rahmations, 628 for Rahmations, 621 for NGC. Both players on level 21. Tetris there for NGC. Tetris there for Rahmations. Looking very evenly matched here in the beginning of post-transitions. Rahmations could really deal with a lot of T's at this point. Taking a couple of burns here at the top of the board, as Rahmations can definitely handle these heights. And slowly but surely burning it down. Actually has given NGC a bit of breathing room to open up a lead. NGC with that Tetris into level 23 at 736. Rahmations at 696. Rahmations now with a Lombard dependency that is going to need filling, but taking a couple of good burns is Rahmations. And Rahmations now Tetris ready at 704. Gets the Tetris into 734, but missed rotation there from Rahmations, going to cause some extra hurt here on his board. 739 for Rahmations, 803 for NGC Man. NGC's board is looking very clean, 836 into level 25, while Rahmations, maybe not necessarily in a fight for his life, but looking to get some dirty Tetrises. Gets a Tetris, now into level 26 at 780. And NGC at 873, sorry. NGC now being forced to take a couple of burns, but still looking good to finish off this game strongly, although now this is getting a little bit more complicated here for NGC. Gonna play it safe. Definitely just wants to make sure we can get a few more Tetrises out of this, because that might just be enough. Gonna film that Lombard dependency, and NGC nearly Tetris ready once again, 898. Gonna get the Tetris, 933 into level 28 with 3 more available. Rahmations setting up for some dirty Tetrises here. 847 into level 29 for Rahmations. Has to do a bit of burning here at the beginning of level 29. 852, NGC at AO2 is already maxed out. And is going to get the final Tetris to go up to A38. And is going to be done, but now Rahmations has the opportunity to chase down A39. So 1.039 would be the required score. And Rahmations looking on decent course to take it. Now knows the target score. But still a very tough situation to get out of. Now needs a well-timed Lombard. Needs a couple of well-timed Lombards. but Rahmations nicely done there for another Tetris. A38 once again was the top outscore for NGC Man. So Rahmations really needs to get this Tetris, and it might just be enough, but Rahmations tops out at 994. What looked to be a train well on its way to its destination has fallen to a tragic fate right at the end. Ready from NGC, hover 3 from Rahmations, game number 2 in 3, 2, 1, Tetris. Alright, so beginning of game number 2 here, 70,000 for Rahmations, 49,000 for NGC. NGC, though, in quite a bit of danger. And is going to need a Lombard, but it's not going to come at the right time. And Rahmations going to be able to level up the set. Tragic start there into NGC's attempt to make it 2-0, but in the end, Rahmations kind of level it up. Alright, so 2 readies via hover 3s from the 2 players, game number 3 and 3, 2, 1, Tetris. Official news, rumors behind the scenes is that we're going to have a guest commentator for our round 2 match between the winner of this and Red Shirt. One of the most famous people in the entire world. One of the biggest, very much so, influencers here in our scene. But until that, we've got this match in front of our hands. 74,000 for Rahmations, 91,000 for NGC. Alright, so 160,000 for NGC Man, 122 for Rahmations. Rahmations in some troubles. Lombard's definitely going to be helpful. Now could use a 2 wide. J and an L going to work out very nicely. 140 for Rahmations, 212,000 for NGC. So NGC with the upper hand here. in the very early stages of level 18, 213 for NGC, 164 for Rahmations. $255 for Rahmations with that Tetris, now up to 278. NGC at 269. Very, very close game here at the opening stages. Nice burn there for Rahmations. Now has a very exaggerated double well, is gonna turn that into a Tetris ready well. Gets the Tetris right there. 349 for Rahmations, 307 for NGC. So Rahmations now with a slight advantage as we are approaching the twilight of level 18 here in game number 3. Tetris for NGC Man is up to 354, Rahmations at 418. So Tetris for NGC can go up to 400,000. Oh, Rahmations tried to get a Lombard all the way over to the left side. Isn't able to get it over. But has burned it down enough that should a Lombard appear relatively soon, Rahmations will be able to bring it over to the left side. There it is. Now has to fill in what was a J dependency, but just takes a few alternate burns instead. Tetris for Rahmations goes up to 456. Builds a Lombard dependency over to the left, but fails it in immediately. 479 for Rahmations, 475 for NGC. $503 for NGC, $525 for Rahmations. Oh, Rahmations with some what could be fatal misdrops over to the left side. Gets the Lombard over with the slide into the board, gets the next Lombard over for an extremely dirty left fall Tetris. Now it's just Lombards over to the left practice for Rahmations, and Rahmations passes with flying colors. Rahmations looking good to survive that. My god. And Rahmations set up for a dirty column 8, but decides to take the burns instead, and now with a completely clean board on level 22 at 631. Plays NGC with a clean board as well at 621, also on level 22. Neither player getting the Lombard for the Tetrises, but Rahmations gets it right there. So does NGC eventually. Both players into level 23. Less than a Tetris to separate the two. And that's going to stay attuned with those two Tetrises scored each. 681 for NGC. Gets the Tetris. 711 into level 24, 750 for Rahmations. Both players keeping it clean, but Rahmations with the slight advantage here, but NGC with some aggressive play gonna be able to string together a few Tetrises now at 772. And Rahmations with some minor complications is gonna be fine. Tetris for Rahmations goes up to 846. The two players now on level 25. NGC with that Tetris goes up to 810. NGC decides to go aggressive there for the dirty Tetris. Now burns it down, can use some T-pieces, and is going to get a crucial T right there, so NGC's board looking good. Rahmations had to do a bit of burning, but it's going to be fine. Gets the Tetris into level 27 at 895. NGC, Tetris ready, gets a Tetris, 916 at level 27. NGC actually has it in his hands to enter level 29 with a slightly higher score. We've seen what Rahmations can do on level 29 and beyond. And NGC looking to get each Tetris available, gonna set up the delayed Vits. But it's not gonna work out. It was a risk worth taking, but in the end, not gonna play out as he would have liked. 953, the top out score, and Rahmations already with a max out. Gonna be able to take game number 3. I'll sit here and call the late Vits war crimes each time, but in that case, I think, knowing the situation, it was very much an understandable move. But without further ado, game number 4 in 3, 2, 1, Tetris. Oh, nice adjustment there for NGC to get the dirty Tetris. Well-timed LPs and NGC's board looking good. Rahmations with 2 Tetrises in a row to start off game number 4. Some well-timed squares there for Rahmations. Could deal with quite a few more though. Rahmations not looking like he's in the habit of burning. So we'll be forced to take one right there, and actually gonna result in quite a few more burns before he can actually get Tetris ready. Oh, NGC now in huge danger. Needs to get a lumbar over to the left side and doesn't get it over, and NGC is gonna top out at 52,000. And Rahmations at 56,000 is gonna take game number 4 and the win over NGC. Tragic ending to what was an excellent fight there from NGC. Really displaying why he's a world-class player. In the end, Rahmations just too strong. And gonna take game number 4, take the set 3-1, and move on to the second round. And I'm currently looking at the website in white mode, which is not very pleasant at all.
Hey everybody, this is your old pal Vandweller, host of Classic Tetris Monthly. If you like this video, hit thumbs up. If you want to see more videos like it, please subscribe and bang that notification bell. And follow us on Twitch at twitch.tv/monthlytetris. Thank you, and have a nice day.